What's up, Tim?
Not much. Now, Adrian, you be on your best behavior. I don't want you asking him any stupid questions about England and stuff, all right?
I don't know why you would assume that I would.
Because you always do stuff like that.
No, I don't.
Yes, you do. You always I think you don't realize how dumb it is.
I don't know what you mean.
But you always ask people about, like, whatever little thing that's different about them than you always have to, like, focus on that. Make the entire conversation about that.
That's not true. And second of all, maybe I'm just a curious person who wants to be knowledgeable on such things.
It's fine to be curious, but you should just let it happen naturally in a conversation and not make every bit of a conversation always about the subtle differences between you and another person.
Is it fine to be bi-curious?
It's totally fine to be bi-curious, but it makes
How would you know?
Because I am. Because I am one. I'm in the house. No, but I don't know. To me, it always comes across like you just kind of seem like ignorant, or like not even ignorant, but like kind of, I don't know, judgmental. It's weird, Adrian.
I've never been judgmental in my entire life.
I know, but you come across that way.
Well, I have nothing to say to that.
I know. So just remember, just keep that in mind.
All right. I won't say a thing.
You can say stuff. Like I said, if it comes up in the conversation, it's fine. But just don't make it all about that.
Would you say that mum's the word?
I kind of get that, but I kind of don't. Are you saying because they use that word more frequently in the UK?
Yes.
Okay, but then it's also a turn of phrase, meaning to not say something?
Yes.
All right, I'll give it to you, Adrian. That's pretty solid, especially on your, like, based on your level.
Thank you.
Yeah, so how you doing, buddy?
Good. Hey, if we have time, if you want, either tonight or sometime, we should do another Story Germ episode because I'm a little behind on that.
Yeah, you're a lot behind on that.
Dude, you almost have us at 800 followers. What the fuck are you doing over there on Twitter? It's crazy.
Building up the follows, brother.
Damn, son.
Yeah.
But, like, I don't understand 90% of the stuff you're tweeting about, but it's good that you're interacting and shit with people about, like,
and I got, like,
things.
Getting some retweets in the lot.
That's awesome. Oh, and then, of course, you had that Reddit post that you got mentioned in that you showed me.
Oh, yeah, that was pretty funny.
That was pretty funny.
People on Reddit are such dicks, dude.
Yes, they are.
A bunch of people went out of their way to talk a bunch of shit about me because I called it out saying that was my tweet, and they were just like all upset. And you come across like a dick for calling those people ex-football players. I'm like, but they are ex-football players.
Oh, wow.
Like, people on Reddit just have a weird bias against the facts.
That's basically Reddit in a nutshell, yeah.
Did you watch, speaking of people who have a bias against the facts, did you watch the Republican debate last night?
I did not. I'm choosing not to follow that because it's going to be a thing for the next 11 months and I just don't give a shit. Like,
and you have to follow it for your job too, huh?
Exactly. So it's like I'm rooting for Bernie. If he doesn't get it, which he probably won't, then go Hillary because I don't want fucking Trump. That's all I'll say.
Well,
or like Dave Ross's thing says, not Trump. I don't know who 2016.
Yeah, exactly.
Or I don't know who 2016, but not Trump though. That's brilliant.
Yeah, but the Republican Party already said that if he was the nominee and they go into convention, that they're just going to basically not give him the nomination and give it to somebody else. So
that would be interesting to see.
Yeah, that will be interesting. It has happened before.
When?
A long time ago.
What, did Rush Limbaugh run or?
No. It wasn't someone who was like a big famous person or anything like that. It was just a guy that the Republican Party was so against that got nominated because of the Electoral College to be the official Republican nominee that they vetoed it and then basically went into the convention having to pick who the nominee was going to be.
Dude, you know who's worse than Trump?
Who's that?
Fucking Rush Limbaugh. And it doesn't matter that he's not running for president. He has a radio show. He has a platform where he can spew his stupid shit all day, all week long. You know, like Trump will eventually, fizzle out. But fucking Rush Limbaugh's been going at it for like 20 years now.
Yeah, but Trump ran last time too. I mean, Trump's going to go at it forever too. Remember when he was doing the birther bullshit in the last election?
But he doesn't have a daily platform where he can spew his bullshit is what I'm getting at.
Yeah,
that's
not
why
daily,
Rush Limbaugh is way more dangerous. I fucking hate Rush Limbaugh. So the thing about Obama is that he's trying to make it so that
Your Rush Limbaugh sounds a lot like Tom Likas.
You know what though? There isn't much of a difference between
There
them.
really isn't.
There really isn't. No. Blow me up, Tom. Hi. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I know. My one comment on that is that I have no clue about American politics at all. But
You're not missing much.
I did read an article before that is a conspiracy theory, basically, that Trump is a white flag guy who's been put up by Hillary Clinton.
Oh, yeah.
Have you read that?
I haven't heard that.
Some of that grumbling's going around.
That like he's there's no intention of him actually like running or anything. He's just there to ensure the Democrats win. So.
Yeah, and like last night in the debate, they asked him if he would be willing to put his assets into a blind trust when he is president, because that's kind of required here in America. And he's like, "Well, I'll let my kids and my wife run it," and it's like that's against the rules of the blind trust. So he's openly saying, "I'm not going to follow the rules and actually do it." So basically implying like I'm not really going to be president.
And that's not even the worst thing he's said. So.
Well, yeah, but that was just a subtle thing that made me realize like there's no way he's actually going to do this.
Right.
All right, so we're pretty much ready. Are you ready to go, or?
Yeah,
I've been recording, so.
Okay, Adrian, are you prepared for this?
Yes, sir.
All right,
hit me. What do you got?
Okay, let's do this. I guess we need an open. So we're doing it's Lucha Reborn. This is season 4 or 5. Episode 1, and we have a special guest tonight. I'm super excited. We have Parv from the Titans of Wrestling, where the big boys play, just general PWO stuff. I have to give you big credit for the Fair to Flair series. That was awesome. I really enjoyed that.
Thanks. It's about time someone gave me credit for it.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. It honestly did, in some ways, shape my opinion on Ric Flair. As I was already a fan, but I never really saw him as the greatest of all time. And after that, after your explanations and going through everything, I kind of see that he's at least number 2 and probably number 1 best that there's ever been. But this episode is not going to be touching too much on wrestling. And Adrian, this is something I've been wanting to do even before this show started, before the Lucha Undead podcast even started. I was wanting to do a series where we kind of talk about just like cult popular things, maybe stuff that people haven't been exposed to as much, and get just a little into them, not super in depth. But I had big lofty dreams of doing a whole podcast network and multiple shows and all this. And of course, life gets in the way and you don't have time. And we're going to kind of get back on track, I think, and maybe just kind of repurpose this show for doing that. So tonight we're going to talk about the dearly departed, recently passed away David Bowie.
Yes.
As sad as it is that we're doing this after he passed away, me and Adrian have been talking about doing this show for months.
Yes.
And just never got around to it, and needed to find someone who we thought would be suitable to talk with us about it, and lo and behold, I guess it's kind of like just how it works, that things come out after the passing is when you find out. Oh, that's when I found out. Oh, Parv, here's a guy who obviously has a wealth of information about David Bowie, just from an article that I saw that you wrote going over all of his albums throughout history. So I guess we could start out with that. I mean, Bowie's a fellow countryman of yours, correct? You're from England as well.
Yes. Well, I mean, I'm actually from Wales, but Bowie was originally Davy Jones, so I think he does have Welsh roots. But yeah, so I mean, obviously his passing has been huge news in the past week or so. I mean, it was a really big deal here. They actually changed the TV schedules. It was the top news story. It was big thing. People flocked to Brixton to pay their tributes, because you got to remember that there are only so many British legends who are still around, and Bowie's probably right up there. He's arguably the greatest solo rock star this country's ever produced. I mean, I don't even know who else you'd put up there, to be honest.
Yeah, it's funny because, or not funny, but it's apropos that you start with that, because that was actually one thing that I thought about that I wanted to talk to you about, was with the recent passing of Lemmy as well, who was another British artist who wasn't as much of a solo artist and all this. But I was thinking about it and comparing the two, and in my mind, and maybe it's just coming from the slant of being here, I always I thought of Bowie as almost an adopted American artist. But he's obviously just as important to you guys, where you probably see him the same way, like he's still British.
It's actually quite interesting because I was thinking about this, and as far as I can make out, and maybe we can talk about this as the show goes on, but I thought Bowie was a much bigger star in the UK than he was in the US. And by that, I mean, this last album that he's just had out is the current UK number one, Black Star. I haven't actually listened to it yet because I can't bring myself to, believe it or not. I bought it, but I haven't listened to it. But that's currently number one. He's currently got 28 number ones in the UK top 100. That is his 10th number one in the UK. Now, as far as I know, Bowie never actually had a US number one album, or if he did, he only had like one. So by that I mean Bowie was actually a mainstream star here. And my impression is that he was maybe a bit too weird or a bit too on the fringes for like mainstream US culture. So that's just my impression from reading about Bowie over the years and understanding where he is. And also just in terms of exactly when he was able to break America, because it seems to me that happened around 74, 75, 76 even. Whereas obviously he was a star here from like 1972. So I don't know. What's your view on that?
Oh, I guess I didn't really think of it that way when it comes to, I guess, the numbers. And you're probably right about that he sold more records and was kind of more critically, or not even critically, but commercially successful in the UK. I feel like here in America, though, he may have not seen as important as a musician, but kind of as just an icon, as someone who, for me, being like a young boy in a part of America that, even though I'm in Southern California, we lived in a small town that was a bit conservative, in Palm Springs. A lot of people think it's like a lot of gay, like there is a lot of gay people there, but at the same time, there's a lot of older, like retired people, that like kind of the Bob Hope generation of people live out there. And for me, growing up out there was a little bit tough. And David Bowie was a guy who kind of like, seeing him made me think it was okay to be weird, if that makes any sense. And I kind of grew off of that. And that was the thing I always saw from him. Like I'm trying to think, The Labyrinth, the movie that he was in, and the character he's playing in there, the way he dressed, all of his style. And then I loved all of his music. But yeah, to me, he was more of like an icon and I guess just someone to look up to. And I felt like that was more of his role in America. He was considered a huge star. He was considered someone that you didn't like. He was almost infallible. You know what I mean? And
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so much so that they threw him in like a random Adam Sandler movie, and it's like, oh, this is the guy. If there was ever going to be any kind of like underground competition in fashion, David Bowie's the hands down the guy judging the competition. You know what I mean? Like, even though that's a throwaway comedy thing, it's like it feels 100% true.
What movie was that?
That was Zoolander. They're doing like a model competition, and David Bowie's judging it.
I don't remember that scene, and that's one of my favorite movies. That's so weird.
Yeah, when they're doing the walk-off.
Okay, I'll have to watch that again. I did not know Bowie was in there. That's crazy. Yeah,
and so to me, I think that was more where he's at. I think a lot of his music was ubiquitous, though, throughout time. I mean, you would hear David Bowie songs constantly.
Yeah, it was in that movie with Heath Ledger where he goes, where the night movie, A Knight's Tale.
Yeah,
they use one of his songs in one of the scenes in the. It's actually pretty fitting considering it's a movie that takes place during medieval times, but they're playing a David Bowie song, but it actually makes sense.
Yeah, they kind of work it in to where it fits. So that was kind of where he was in America. I think the problem with a lot of foreign artists in America is just that by the time anyone's paying attention to their records, there isn't kind of that frenzy to gobble them up and buy them all that gets you to the top of the charts, which is kind of what's necessary to do those numbers like he did in the UK. So that could be part of it. But I guess what I wanted to get into there was, to begin with, was just kind of like your first introductions to David Bowie as an artist, and just kind of like, did you come in from the beginning, or I don't know if that's even possible for you, if you were even alive at that time. But like for me, he's just someone who always existed.
Yeah, well, I mean, for me, I'm 33 now, so I definitely was not around in the 70s.
Right.
So I was born in 1982. But when I was a kid, I watched that film that you mentioned, The Labyrinth, over and over and over again. I mean, I watched that film so many times that you could put it on, and I could you could put it on mute and I could fill in the words for you, even now. I mean, it's quite funny. It infects my life every single day, the influence of that film. I've been going out with this girl called Sarah for about the past 18 months, 2 years. And, I mean, every time I hear her name, it triggers a line off from the Labyrinth. So, I'll say to her, Sarah, don't defy me, or just other random lines from the film all the time. So, yeah, Labyrinth was a huge part of my childhood. And it was only later that I kind of figured out that David Bowie was this massive rock star on top of just the guy who was the Goblin King. So it's kind of funny that I came to it that way around. But then, I don't know, like you said, I really got into Bowie big time when I was a teenager. And, I've always felt like a bit of an outsider, like somebody who's a bit different from other people, whatever that means. And, when you're a teenager, you're a bit kind of, I don't know, you feel that other people are phony, all that kind of Catcher in the Rye stuff. And Bowie just felt like somebody who made it all seem all right, like you said. It's all right to be different because he's there for you. So he was very, very important in that, when I was 15, 16, 17.
So can I
Unfortunately,
ask you, sorry, I just want, I've heard of the movie Labyrinth. I've never seen it. I don't know what it's about. Can you give me a quick synopsis of what that movie's about? Because I'm curious, actually.
Well, it's there's a girl called Sarah, and she's about 14, something like this, played by Jennifer Connelly, who's quite gorgeous in her own right later on in life. But anyway, Jennifer Connelly plays this girl, and I think it's implied that her parents have been divorced, and that she's got like a stepfather or a stepmother. I can't remember which way around it is, and they keep on going out all the time and leaving her to babysit her baby brother. And she's also like a bit of a fantasist. Like she dresses up, and she's got this book called The Labyrinth, and she goes through all these weird rituals and things.
Like a normal teen girl. She's kind of obsessed with fantasy, like a lot of the girls are now with Twilight, but hers is more like the kind of Renaissance era, but like with whimsical, like trolls and fairies and stuff.
And basically, I don't know. There's this one time where she's babysitting her brother, and she just wishes that the goblins would come and take him away, and basically she gets what she wishes for. And David Bowie is the king of the goblins, and he shows up, and basically she's got 13 hours to save her brother before he becomes a goblin.
Oh wow.
But there's all sorts of she has to go through the labyrinth to find the castle at the center. And Bowie, in all his glory, wears a pair of tights throughout, showing off his rather ample penis.
He's wearing a codpiece as well.
Yeah, he is wearing a codpiece, that's right.
It's quite the outfit, Adrian. You would love it.
I'm sure I would.
I mean, I still think he is tremendously cool in that film, but it's also quite a dark film. I mean, for a kid's film, it's quite dark because it's all about Sarah's kind of adolescent sexual feelings and her being in situations where she's not really old enough to be in that, like she's in above her head in a way.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like about coming to terms with the fact that she's actually kind of growing up, but she's also kind of a kid.
So is Bowie like sort of like the antagonist of the story? But
yeah. I mean, he's basically the villain. He's the Goblin King.
Have you ever seen the Chelsea Fragments by any chance? Either of you?
No.
It's an Ellen Page movie, and it was like an art school movie that she made before anyone knew who she was. And it's funny because as you're talking about that, I kind of realized it's very similar, but it's kind of like a dirty, darker, grittier version of the same story. So I don't know if anybody's listening to this has seen it, or if anyone's interested in something like that. I could almost see the two pieces being like like companions to each other. One like being what the girl's fantasy is, and then the other one being what's actually going on.
Right.
In a weird way, they mirror each other in that.
Labyrinth almost sounds like the coming of age film with the hero's journey part.
Yeah,
of it,
it definitely is.
Yeah,
It's kind of, I mean, it's kind of in that tradition of Alice in Wonderland and Wizard of Oz, and I don't know, there's all sorts of films that seem to have a young girl who goes on a kind of surreal journey and then is kind of coming of age as well.
yeah.
So it was also written by one of the Monty Python crew, Trevor Jones, which is often forgotten. So it's got kind of little notches of British humour all throughout it as well. So,
Yeah, and it's got like puppets that I think were made by I can't think of his name.
Jim Henson.
Yeah, Jim Henson puppets.
Yeah.
I have to watch this movie now.
Yeah, you definitely have to check it out.
Oh,
And
I mean, it's a classic. It really is amazing.
Yeah.
it's a great movie. And as you're talking about it, I thought Bowie kind of, in a weird way, he's the king of it's the trolls, right? Or
Goblins, yeah.
King of the goblins. In a weird way, it's kind of like related to how they say in the Bible that Satan is very attractive, and it's kind of like Bowie is like this kind of Satan figure in the movie because he's a really attractive guy and he's all dolled up wearing tights and a codpiece, and it's like, but he's the ruler of these evil minions, and almost like the dark side in hell. I had never really thought about that kind of.
Well, I mean, I don't want to give any away too many spoilers for anyone who hasn't kind of seen it, including you, Bob. But basically, when I was 18, I watched it again, and my mum turned around and she said at the end, "You do realise, don't you, that it's all a dream, that none of them exist?" And honestly, it never occurred to me that the whole thing was a dream, and I cried my eyes out for about an hour. I was 18 years old, but it was just, I mean, it destroyed me to think that the whole thing is like a psychodrama playing out in her head. So I don't want to, I mean, that doesn't really change anything about the movie, but it's kind of like one of those realizations that I had later. It'll be obvious to you now watching it as an adult, but yeah, something to think about. That Bowie in that film isn't just a Satan figure. He is a dark manifestation of her kind of nascent adulthood or sexuality or something like that.
It's amazing to think that it had that much of an impact on you, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for me, as you said, it was kind of odd the way that you were first exposed to him in the movie and then his music. I was the same way. I mean, I'm only a few years. We're about the same age, basically, and
Right.
and I had the same experience. So I watched The Labyrinth multiple times. I don't think as many times as you did, but I watched it many times as a kid. And then I found out later. I think I was somewhat aware that he was a musician, but I didn't know his music that much. And then as I kind of grew up, I started to find out about different stuff. And look into it and find out, that like he wasn't just the guy from that movie, the silly guy from that movie.
Yeah, and there's a bit of a generational split here between, because I think there's quite, like, Labyrinth is one of those weird things where it's much beloved to people of our generation who grew up with it as kids, but it was really critically panned at the time and is generally seen by like older Bowie fans as like the complete nadir of his career, like the lowest point of Bowie's life basically is doing this film. So it's quite interesting that there's a bit of a split in the old Bowie fandom between people who absolutely love Labyrinth, like me and Tim here, and older fans who just thought it was a lame kids film and that Bowie should never have been in it, Yeah. So I should make you aware of that.
So let's get into that kind of, because as you say that sparked an interest for me, that it was the low part of his career. Musically, do you know around what time, what albums, what was going on in Bowie's life when he was doing the movie?
Oh, yeah. I mean, so basically, I mean, Bowie is a star of the 70s, and really his reputation, the reason why this is such a massive deal and so on, the fact that he's died now, his legacy was built in the 1970s. His peak work, if you want, is all in that decade. that's just musically. I mean, I guess apart from that, he's also a style icon, fashion icon. They ran that in London a couple of years ago. They ran a very big exhibition at the V&A where they just, because he's just, the image is as important as the music with Bowie, right? So he's always had those two strings to his bow, if you want. But just in terms of his rock legacy, it's all 1970s. In the 1980s, basically he kind of sold out, I guess. He did an album in 1983 that was produced by Nile Rodgers of Chic fame, and he basically told Nile Rodgers, "Look, I want you to do what you do best, and I want you to make me some hits." And basically, Let's Dance in 1983, Tonight in 1984, and Never Let Me Down in 1987 are three very commercial albums in which Bowie was just trying to get to number one, and I don't know. He's since referred them to them as his Phil Collins years, where he's making like kind of stuff that your gran might listen to. I mean, he's a bit harsh on himself because there is actually some all right stuff on some of those albums.
Yeah, I'd say Let's Dance honestly has like 3 of what I think are my favorite Bowie songs on it. So it's hard for me to think that that people consider that one of his bad albums.
Yeah, I mean, well, that Let's Dance itself is funky as hell, right? Modern Love, China Girl.
Yeah, all 3 of those. I love those songs.
I mean, even Tonight has got Loving the Alien on it. Jazzin' for Blue Jean is a good song as well. And even like Never Let Me Down has got a song called Day In, Day Out, which I don't mind. Anyway, around that time he was doing like stadium tours. There was something called the Glass Spider Tour. I remember buying the VHS of it in the height of my fandom. And yeah, so I mean he was like a global star in the 1980s, but he was doing like stuff that has since is probably like at the lowest point of his critical kind of output, if you want, even though he was maybe at a commercial peak. Like, I mean, for example, when he released Let's Dance in 1983, I think he had like 10 albums in the UK top 100, because that was the point at which Bowie mania hit, and maybe that was helped his profile in the United States as well, where through getting into something like Let's Dance, maybe people went back and discovered some of his back catalog as well.
Yeah, because I remember seeing, I think, stuff from like Ziggy Stardust, like old videos like that being played on like the random late night like TV shows where they would play music videos because you shouldn't be awake anymore because it's like 3 or 4 in the morning. They would play like old Bowie videos from the 70s, and this was like into probably the late 90s, early 2000s. So I think the stuff didn't make it over into America until much later.
Yeah, and one kind of minor thing to mention is that Bowie was kind of a pioneer of the video format. Like you kind of take the idea of the music video for granted now, right? But he was making videos at a time where people didn't really make videos. So when MTV hit, you got to remember they had to fill like 20, like however many hours of airtime so you'd actually get quite a lot of Bowie's videos being played on MTV just because there weren't any other videos,
Yeah. I think he did something that was a lot more artistic, though. I mean, a lot of his videos, I think early on, came across more like small films and less like the kind of more commercial music videos that became the norm later on. So that was also good. He was kind of like testing the boundaries of it, even in the beginning of the music video, which I think is kind of something that he did throughout his career. I think even during his pop kind of mega breakout time, like I said, there's songs in there that I think were in some ways pushing the boundaries of what a pop song could be.
Absolutely, yeah. I'd agree with that.
Yeah. So then, speaking of pushing the boundaries, I think if we're going to talk about Bowie, we have to talk about something. And it's something that I do relate to, and it was something, like I said, where Bowie, as when I was younger, made me feel like, hey, if this guy can be weird, then I can be weird. Is kind of his sexuality and all the rumors that go around with that. I don't know how you feel about getting into that a little bit, but there's like the music video Dancing in the Streets, and there's all the conversations about him and Iggy Pop and all this and that. Not that it's important, but just, I mean, for someone like me who maybe has only heard the rumors, how much of it's true? You know what I mean? Like that, just so that I know the facts.
What about Bowie's sexuality?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he did famously come out and just say that he was gay at one point. And even though he was married to a woman at the time, I've always thought that Bowie was basically straight, even though he played with sexuality, and like he was always being very media savvy. And I think he knew that would be something like scandalous, you know. I mean, he appeared in a dress famously on the front of the man who sold the world, you know, the man who sold the world in 1970. Now, looking back, you think of 1970 as quite a kind of, you know, you think of the summer of love of '69, and like our image of the 60s is of being like swinging and free love, and you think of, you know, the early 70s as a time of maybe sexual liberation. But the reality is that society wasn't really like, actually, the reality on the street is that most people were quite conservative still. So the idea of a man appearing in a dress on the front cover of an album was actually still quite scandalous, which seems ridiculous to us now in 2015. But Bowie is probably one of the reasons why that seems so ridiculous. Does that make sense?
No, yeah. The sad part is that in a way it doesn't seem ridiculous. But before we started the podcast, or before we started recording, I got myself all ginned up on bad left-wing podcasts. So I'm kind of a little on edge about like social, like I guess just the social mores and what's seen as good and bad. But I get what you're saying.
Let me draw an analogy, okay? Well, we're all wrestling fans, okay? And I don't want to talk about wrestling on this show, but I think of wrestling in the 1980s, let alone the 1970s. Think of it in the 1980s.
Right.
Now go back to 1970 when Dory Funk Jr. was the champion, and now think of those crowds seeing a man in a dress on the front cover, and that is getting towards what I'm getting at.
Yeah. No.
Where society at large wasn't quite ready for it. Do you see what I'm saying?
No, I get what you're saying, and at the same time, like you said, that it's on the surface when you think of the 70s, you think of it being liberated. I just think that in some weird ways now it's similar in that regard now, where openly I think people don't want to say the things as much, but some people do believe it still. But it's definitely a lot better than it was back then. I'm not arguing that point at all. Like, it is more accepted, people have more rights, and it's not as weird. On top of the fact that there's just more dime a dozen kind of crackerjack guys who are doing a similar thing, like you said with Bowie, where it's kind of like realizing that you can play with this as a way to get some attention, and then once you start overdoing that and people have taken it too far, then it loses all of its value because, you know, no one's shocked by it anymore.
Sure. Well, I will say, though, that there were definitely stories of him sleeping with absolutely anything. I think some people said that, like, at the height, you know, because you got to remember that he went through several periods of hardcore drugs and all sorts. You know, he really did live the rock and roll life. And so in those kind of early mid to 70s era, like, apparently he'd sleep with absolutely anything, you know.
I've heard the same thing about Mick Jagger. The same exact thing.
And, I mean, there were stories of, because he was married to Angie Bowie at the time, but there were stories of, like, him going out and getting a man, her going out and getting a woman, and then both coming back and, you know, just having all sorts of hedonistic activities. So, yeah, I'm sure some of those things are true. Whether this is true about him and Mick Jagger, which is the thing that you always hear, I'm not so sure. But who knows?
And the Iggy Pop one, I feel like I remember hearing Iggy Pop talk about it, but not giving anything definitive as well. And just kind of openly saying, like, that, you know, Bowie was there for them and he was a close friend and all that, but never really saying that there was anything more.
Yeah.
So, actually, speaking of that, Iggy Pop, I think there's a story that I heard, and I may have gotten it confused. I think it was Mott the Hoople were going to break up, and Bowie basically wrote an album for them and talked them into not breaking up. Is this story real?
Well, I mean, the song that he wrote for them was All the Young Dudes, famously.
Yeah.
So I don't know about the whole album, but I know he definitely wrote that song for them. So.
And then I had heard, or he at least produced, or was like partly produced on the album as well, with was just that song. But I mean, how much about the part, like I said, about that they were basically on the verge of breaking up, and he contacted them saying like, "Oh, you guys are one of my favorite bands. You shouldn't break up."
Yeah, well, I mean, that's one of the other things that Bowie did quite a lot, was that he always supported acts that he really cared, like underground acts or lesser known acts that he really cared about. So, I mean, you see it with Mott the Hoople, but you also see it with Iggy Pop. I mean, I think there's a realistic argument to say that half the people who know who Iggy Pop is wouldn't know who he is if it wasn't for David Bowie. Similar thing with Lou Reed. I mean, do you know what I mean? Where these guys were kind of underground acts, they were cool, they were edgy, but Bowie helped to bring them to the masses in a way, or repackage them, or he helped them out at different points in their career. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's honestly something that's really cool to me as someone who is at that level of stardom and could basically not care about helping foster a community in music, and that he put that effort into it. Like I said, that was a story that I had heard, and I don't know, what facts I got that were correct and this and that, but that I always kind of admired that someone would take the time to do that. I had never really known about the stuff with Lou Reed, because Lou Reed was a guy who I always thought had so much talent, and just, I mean, he's known and he's famous and respected for everything he did, but I just felt like he had a bigger career inside of him that he just for some reason could never get the big shot that he could out of it. And hearing that David Bowie tried to help support him and try to do what he could is kind of interesting as well, because he probably saw that as well.
Well, I mean, he was always like very upfront about who his influences were. Like if you I always remember getting Hunky Dory, and if you read the notes on the back of there, he says, with thanks to the Velvet Underground next to Queen Bitch, for example, or I don't know, at various different times he makes a point of showing exactly where he got things from. And then, of course, he went on to produce Lou Reed's album Transformer, which is probably to date still Lou Reed's biggest hit record. So, yeah, that song "Satellite of Love," for example. Yeah. You can hear Bowie singing in the background of that one. He does the pom 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 bit.
Oh,
so yeah,
I actually never knew that.
And then he also produced Iggy Pop's "Lust for Life," and his album, what's the other one called? The Idiot. I mean, those are still probably Iggy Pop's two biggest hit records. So, yeah, I mean, he was kind of in the business of not only wearing his influences on his sleeve, but going out of his way to work with these people and to actually kind of give them hits, if that makes any sense.
Right. That does make a lot of sense. Now, here, I want to get into another dark thing that I actually just came across here that I had never known anything, but what is with Bowie and the Nazism? How do you feel about these references to fascism, having Nazi paraphernalia, all this that I'm seeing? Is that another thing that you think maybe have been him kind of trying to just be provocative, or?
Well, I mean, there's two things to say about that. The first thing to say is that around that period, 1975, 1976, Bowie was repeatedly living on milk and chili peppers, and doing weird things like storing his own urine in the fridge.
That's not that weird.
Tim does that.
Yeah.
Apparently he was just living on cocaine, milk, and peppers at one point.
The Christian Bale diet, I believe is what it's called.
There was famously an album that came out called David Live, and somebody who reviewed it at the time said it would be more apt to call it David Dead because he was about 7 stone. I don't know what that is in your American
I think
pounds,
it's either 14 or 16 pounds per stone, so it's not much.
So it's like, that's probably less than most very, very skinny at that time. And in fact, he has an appearance on TV on a US chat show around that time, completely coked out of his head. So that's the first thing to mention. The second thing to mention is that he was playing a character known as the Thin White Duke around that period. I actually think that the Thin White Duke looks immensely cool, but the Thin White Duke, by all accounts, was a fascist. I think the station starts with him singing "The Return of the Thin White Duke," throwing darts in lovers' eyes. So he's meant to be kind of an ice cold, basically neo-Nazi character. So partly he was playing a character, partly he was coked out of his mind. But he did do a Nazi salute in an airport once.
I'm pulling up. See, I don't know the character names. Like, I've seen the different dress styles of Bowie. Everyone knows kind of the Ziggy Stardust with the lightning bolt on his face, but seeing what is coming up here as the Thin White Duke character, I agree. I always saw that and just thought he looked kind of cool. I didn't realize that he was supposed to be playing this kind of weird fascist Nazi character.
Yeah, so when he goes through his kind of so when his hair's all slicked back, and it's arguably Bowie is absolutely coolest, the Thin White Duke era. But
I would say, from like what you would consider stereotypical machismo cool, like, because to me, there's other stuff that I think is cool, kind of like even like the bowl cut, no eyebrows. I think that looks really cool, but I think that from like a stereotypical male perspective, would probably think that look is a lot more like badass.
Yeah. And I should there is a little thing. So Ziggy Stardust himself didn't have the lightning bolt across the head, believe it or not.
Right.
That character is Aladdin Sane. So Ziggy Stardust is the one with it. He's got the spot in front of his. It's kind of like a spot on his forehead. It's like a big eye type thing. You'd have to pill up. So there's that character. So there's Ziggy Stardust. There's Aladdin Sane, which is basically Ziggy in America. And then there's Halloween Jack, who's the character on the Diamond Dogs album, which is a pretty good album. It's like a 1984 pastiche. Then you've got the Thin White Duke. And then you have kind of Berlin era Bowie, who's not so much a character, but more of a period in his life where he goes to Berlin with Iggy Pop and tries to clean up his act, as it were. And that's when they made those classic albums, Low, Heroes. On Low and Heroes, you can hear Iggy Pop singing in the background. And, of course, Iggy Pop makes Lust for Life and The Idiot, which are Iggy's coming clean albums. So yes, and Lou Reed also went to Berlin, and he made the album Berlin, which is pretty depressing. So yeah,
that's really interesting. So all three of them moved to Berlin, and was it under the guise of, like you said, cleaning up and just kind of be more focusing on their art and focusing on their work?
Yeah, they basically, they've said in interviews since that if they hadn't gone to Berlin at that point, they probably would have ended up dead. All of them would have. If you watch the videos from that period, Be My Wife is one I'd point to. You can kind of see like his teeth are all, you can see that he's somebody who's coming back from the brink of something tragic, By the time you get to Heroes, he once again looks immensely cool, I think. I think Bowie in about 1977 has got another really cool look about him. So, and he's kind of more like, his hair's brown by that point, and he's got like, I don't know, he's more he's just David Bowie in 1977, but it's more like I don't know. It's like him trying to become more human after having been so many different aliens. If that makes sense.
No, yeah, that does make sense. He's kind of getting grounded and getting back to being, I guess, a person, like you said, just a normal guy. He's David Bowie.
But there's still the sense that even in those things that he's playing at being a normal person, if that makes sense. There's always that weird distance between the kind of person that you're seeing and the I don't know if you ever get to the real Bowie, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that does make sense. I think it also kind of fit with the time because as I think the 70s went into the 80s, it kind of turned into it wasn't as acceptable to be as extravagant. So he was kind of toning everything down just because culturally that's what made sense. And even if it didn't come across like that was what he was into.
Well, I mean, there's different ways you can look at it. One way you can look at it is that so you can look at glam rock as being a thing of excess, right? But glam rock, so Ziggy Stardust and Aladdin Sane albums, the other glam rock acts would be T-Rex, Mark Bolan, people like that. And then, but if you think about it, if you follow that trajectory, you get onto really over-the-top acts like Kiss, say. You can think of Kiss, right?
Yeah.
Kiss are like way over the top, right? So that's one direction that music went. Or Queen are really over the top, right? So you can look at Bowie kind of always wanting to keep one step ahead of the curve. So when everybody else was going in that direction that he'd already set, first of all, he decides to step back and do that Philly soul. You know, he does the Young Americans album, which is a completely different sound. He called rock and roll a toothless old woman in 1975. And then now he's listening to Kraftwerk and making music that sounds, I don't know, it's got bits of electronica in there before electronica was a thing. And he's kind of like, this is the trajectory of Bowie when he's at his most vital. He's kind of one step ahead of the rest of the pack type thing. So, you know, you might expect him to make 3 or 4 albums in the Ziggy Stardust vein, but when everybody else is doing that, he's doing something else. And then when everybody else starts to copy whatever he was doing, he moves on again. Does that make sense?
No, yeah, it does. The mainstream is just constantly kind of chasing him as he's moving on, and that's to me that's something I really look up to because, like you said, Kiss and God, I can't even think of. Oh, and Queen. I like a lot of Queen's music, but Kiss to me is just kind of, it's more style than substance. I'm not into the music, and it does just kind of, it's more of the same. It's nothing groundbreaking, and it's just all gimmick. And yeah, it's interesting to see that Bowie kind of saw that coming before it came. It seems like there's a certain artistic flair that people have, and you can kind of pick it out and see that, oh, this guy's special. And they always seem to have that idea where it's always, like I said, running ahead of everyone else and being the trailblazer for fashion, style, music, whatever it is.
Well, I mean, one of the key albums that you can see it on is in 1980 he made an album called Scary Monsters, where he's kind of in a clown costume on the front of it. This is the album that Ashes to Ashes is from. And on that album, he basically invents the new romantic movement, which was to define the rest of the 80s. Now, as we talked about earlier, he didn't spend the rest of the 80s doing new romantic stuff. He was doing Let's Dance and Tonight and Making Labyrinth and doing all, you know, commercial things. But if you look at Scary Monsters, it sets the template for all of those 80s bands who came later, like Adam and the Ants or Duran Duran or Spandau Ballet or, you know, any of those big 80s bands,
right?
Were basically kind of writing songs like the ones he was writing on Scary Monsters. So, he was arguably as influential in the 80s as he was in the 70s, even if he wasn't making his most vital albums in that period.
Well, that's interesting to talk about comparing those 2 decades, and then if we moved into the next decade, I mean, through the 90s, I I don't remember anything too influential, but maybe you have a side of it that I never noticed. Is there anything that he did in the 90s that you would say was just as influential, or?
No, I mean, so that album I mentioned, Scary Monsters, was a bit of an albatross for Bowie over the next 20 years or so, because almost every album he released was, the reviews would say, oh, this is his best album since Scary Monsters. And then the next one will come out and it'd be like the best album since Scary Monsters. So it's almost like nothing it's almost like he was trying to make statements, but he was kind of trapped by his own success type thing. He does have some interesting work in the 90s. I would point to Earthling from 1997, which is this weird kind of drum and bass. If you think of like 1997 in music, we had like dance and did you guys have Prodigy in the United States?
Yeah.
I mean, they were a big thing here. And it's kind of like Bowie doing Prodigy.
Yeah, I actually do remember some of that, and it kind of came to me. Unfortunately, that was kind of a sign of where it came across like Bowie was a step behind, and maybe I was just kind of into the stuff more than the mainstream was. But it just sounded like him trying to do like a house album, like something that came across like an EDM or a house album, and it didn't feel authentically Bowie. And and
he was kind of like working with 9 Inch Nails and people like that. And it was kind of like, I do agree that it's the period of his career where he sounds like he's kind of behind the pack rather than in front of them. But I don't know. I think that despite that, Earthling, for example, doesn't sound like any other album on Earth. I can't, like, yes, it does have drum and bass stylings and things, but there isn't a single drum and bass album that sounds like it.
No, that's for sure.
So yeah, I mean, it's just, but in the kind of in his back catalogue, the 90s stuff is more like curiosities. Like, you know, if I was setting a David Bowie 11-week course, it'd be like further reading. Does that make sense?
No, yeah, that does. You mentioned him working with 9 Inch Nails, and that was something that I wanted to bring up, was the Saul Williams album that he made with Trent Reznor as well. And I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's called The Inevitable Rise and Liberation of Niggy Tardust.
Wow, I didn't know. I haven't listened to this one.
Yeah, and so Saul Williams was like a rapper and kind of multi-instrumentalist, and artist who did like also visual art and stuff like that. And he made a kind of a concept album working with Trent Reznor from 9 Inch Nails. And it's like he did a cover of Sunday Bloody Sunday, the U2 song, and it's kind of a lot of stuff is hearkening to different parts of society and this and that. But it always kind of struck me that he took the time to make an allusion to something that was a Bowie album and a Bowie character and all that, to kind of reference the concept of him making what is, in a sense, like a rock and roll tribute album while still not being rock and roll. It is almost like kind of like electronic rock and roll hybrid with rap. And it's, to me, like I said, it's very interesting that he felt that the moniker or the thing to hearken to that would make the most sense to kind of get that point across was David Bowie's album, because Bowie kind of did the same thing where he kind of was writing lines while kind of creating something new and different and interesting that harkens to other concepts.
Yeah.
So that's, something to check out if you're interested in rap or like rap-based harder music. But I just because you mentioned working with 9 Inch Nails, I thought of that because it was another project that Trent Reznor was involved in.
Yeah, and if you want to listen to a Bowie track that he did with Trent Reznor, I think "I'm Afraid of Americans" would be the one to.
Oh yeah, I actually really like that song.
That's got a decent video as well, that song. So yeah. And then after the 1990s, the last kind of 15 years of Bowie's career are quite interesting in a way, because he released these two albums, Heathen in 2002 and Reality in 2003, where he kind of settled into kind of a late style, I guess you'd call it. And then he disappeared for 10 years, like literally 10 years between reality and the next day. And like for some of that time, he was making appearances. I remember he was on Ricky Gervais's TV series Extras.
Yes,
Did you ever
I
see
love
that show?
that scene. I love that scene. I actually posted that the day that I heard he passed away on Facebook. That's a great scene. I don't know how much of it was improvised and how much of it was written, but it's a brilliant comedic scene right there. If you haven't seen it,
Yeah, so that's a lot of fun, that appearance. But like, really, he kept quite a low profile by Bowie standards, and then he completely disappeared to the point where it was like, has he retired? Is he ill? Like, what's happened to him? And then out of nowhere, he dropped this album the next day. And I mean, one of the things we haven't really talked about a bit that much is how much David Bowie has always been a master of manipulating the media, and just like, he is the master of PR, I guess you'd say. Like, he's always been able to create a storm, even in times where you think that he's no longer relevant. So he disappears for 10 years and then drops an album without mentioning anything. And if you think about these days, where you've got instant social media, you've got, you can't do anything without somebody saying something. To do that was probably the thing that would got him most publicity, right? So, I mean, the next day, I remember when it came out, was an instant storm because nobody'd seen anything of Bowie for 5 years. So he was still kind of playing the media very well. And then, of course, this album came out last week, and I'm not saying he planned it at all, but it was kind of like the ultimate statement before he sadly passed away. So, I mean, I think he released it on the was it the 7th or the 8th, and then he literally died like 2 days later.
yeah.
And he was there. He released the album. It was his birthday, and then he died. So, it's kind of like I'm not saying he in any way planned it, but I'm just saying that it did create the maximum possible level of attention on that album. So, yeah.
And it wouldn't be surprising from a guy like Bowie, who, like you said, has that history. And I was just quickly looking it up because I'm seeing the next day. You say that dropped just randomly with no hype. It just came out on March 2013. And then I'm looking because I'm like, oh, that happened with Beyonce. Beyonce did it later in the same year, but it was still after Bowie, almost implying that she got the concept. She saw what he did and tried to do the same thing.
Absolutely. I mean, he's always done things that then are kind of copied. I mean, one of the amazing things that they showed on TV recently was they showed him being interviewed on a show that we have here called Newsnight, and this was back in like the mid-90s, where they're talking about the internet. And the interviewer there, he's quite famous in this country. His name's Jeremy Paxman. He's very skeptical about the internet, And he's saying, don't you think people are making a big fuss over this? And Bowie's sitting there right in the kind of early to mid-90s saying, mark my words, the internet's going to be the biggest thing you've ever seen. And he could see it all the way back then, the potential of what it would be.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's one of those things that people don't think about much. Bowie went big on the internet very early, and it made him an absolute fortune. This thing called BowieNet that came out, and I think it made him something like, I don't know, £200 million or something in the early 2000s.
Oh wow! I'm just reading about that really quickly. It was an actual ISP.
Yeah.
Are you serious?
Wow.
So
yeah.
So he really was a genuine trendsetter at every single point. Like he had an ability to spot where things were and how to maximize them before they took off. Where you have that bell curve, he was always before the point where things got over massively. So yeah.
So he said that about the internet in 1990, you said?
It was more like the mid-90s, I think it was.
Which is when we barely knew what the internet was. I mean, it wasn't even a sparkle in our mother's eye, as they say at that point.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's pretty amazing.
He was saying then that it's going to completely revolutionize everything.
Right.
TV, music, video. It's completely going to change the way you think about the world. And people would, and the interview was saying, don't you think you're overestimating this a little bit? And he was like, so it was just interesting that like little thing that they pulled out. But
you know what's funny about that, honestly, is that he said that, and like journalists at the time, like Katie Couric in 1994, didn't even know what email was. You know, like they had no concept of what email was. They had to ask their producer about it live on air. What's email? And David Bowie's here saying, "Yeah, the internet's going to be big." So there you go. You know, what does that tell you? You know.
Well, yeah, and it's Katie Couric's job to be up on the news and know what's going on. But in a way, it was Bowie's job too, because even though it wasn't his job to sit in front of us, like it was Bowie's job to tell us what was cool and what was important in just the things that he did.
Right.
Yeah, that's true. That's true also. So, yeah, I mean, is there anything else you want to cover?
No, I
Tim?
think we kind of went through everything. Kind of suits me well. It's obviously not the best time. It's a good topic at a bad time, as you would say. I hope that you do get a chance to enjoy the new album that came out at some point once it's not too hard. I'm definitely going to be humming and listening to songs here and there for the next couple of weeks after this. I just wanted to say, thank you for coming on. Like I said, I couldn't plug your stuff enough. I'm super excited to actually be on another podcast with another Titan, which is really cool for me because I love the Titans of Wrestling. I think it's a great show. If there's anything else you want to plug yourself?
No, I mean, I guess the main thing you could do is look at my look at the Bowie article I wrote where I go through all of the albums, and you can get more detail if you want to get into Bowie and you haven't really explored the stuff. Yeah, and my pleasure. I never thought I'd be on a Lucha podcast.
We're really not a Lucha podcast anymore, but we kind of are, I guess. We're based, we're in Southern California, so it's close enough. Well, thank you so much, Parv. It was really great, and yeah.
Great. Well, thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you very much.
All right, cool. That was a lot of fun. So thanks.
Cheers. I hope I didn't talk too much.
No,
No, it was perfect. Thank you so much. You talked like more than enough.
I was gonna ask you.
I guess that's the same thing as you were saying. But
yeah, I had a pretty broad question about like because when I heard that David Bowie passed, like I knew it was huge news, but this is coming from somebody who like isn't like a huge music person, but I love music, but I wasn't like a huge Bowie person. Like I had a very superficial knowledge about David Bowie. So I was going to ask you, like, what is it that made David Bowie so great, so loved by so many people? And you pretty much answered that question, through everything that you described tonight. So thank you for that.
Well, great. Yeah, and if you haven't listened to it, Ziggy Stardust is the place to start because it's just so much fun, that album. So
yeah.
I'm going to add that to my Spotify list.
Trip.
All right. Cheers, guys. Yeah. I'm going to go to bed, I think.
Yeah, have a good
Thanks
Saturday.
All right, you guys too.